Hi, I'm Ian Talk, the founder of Charity Excellence. This is the third video in our Get Fundraising Fit series, and in it I will be looking at ways to find new funders. Tips and tricks to professionals, some of them you will already know about, quite a few of them simply won't work for you. It's the ones that do that matter though, isn't it? So, very quickly touch on fundraising and current challenges. How you approach diversifying income. You do need to take factors into account. Finding the right grants directory. They do different things. They cost different amounts. Get the right one. And then a great big long list of ways in which you can find new funders, basically. So this is the Charity Excellence resilience projections. You can see COVID on the left, cost of living crisis on the right. You can see it's much deeper and longer. We do not expect proper sector recovery until 2025, unless something fundamentally changes with the election. And it will not recover until the economy recovers. So maybe not even then. It's going to be tough, and finding new ways to secure funding is going to be critical for everyone. So diversifying your funding. This is an Ansoff matrix that I've changed. I did this years ago. The left-hand side are the fundraising techniques. The top bit are your donors. This is about new product and market penetration, essentially. So what we're looking at, top left, lowest risk. Existing donors, same techniques. For example, we do trust fundraising, works really well. We've got cracking prospect list. We got the capacity to get the bids in. We know we're good at this. We're going to do more of them next year. Perfectly fine strategy, by far the lowest risk one to do. Of course, you've got all your eggs in one basket, so bear that in mind, but that's a good way to do it. New donors using an existing technique, it's higher risk because you're working with a group of people that actually you've never worked with before. So we're great at fundraising events. Instead of just doing fundraising events in Aylesbury, where we've always done them, we're going to do them across the county because we work county-wide. So that is same technique. We know we're good at it, but we're going to do it in places where really we've never worked before. So there's a bit more risk involved in that. Or new techniques with existing donors. So we have our existing donors who support us. Some of them give regular. We are going to build up that, and we're going to look to identify within those regular donors people who are more likely to be affluent. You can go to Google Maps. If there's a swimming pool in the house, they've probably got a bit of money. You know the areas in the local areas where affluent people are. Check the postcode. So we're going to see if we can find some really quite affluent people who may be in business, and we're going to try and pull them out. We're going to try and work with them in a different way. So it's slightly higher risk because we've never really done this before. And then high risk, we're going to apply a new technique with completely new donors, crypto fundraising. We've never done crypto fundraising. It's tackling in to people who hold cryptocurrencies, younger, more affluent, never really worked in there. Yeah, it's a great, entirely new funding stream, but it's high risk because this is something we've not done before. Which quadrant should you be in? You can be in any of those quadrants. It depends on how much risk you're able to take. It depends on how much risk you're prepared to take. And it depends whether you're being forced out of the top left because you simply have run out of space there. So this is how you approach thinking about which of those new funding streams you might pursue and how you might do that. So choosing the right grants directory. Not all grants directories are equal. Is Charity Excellence Funding Finder the best? I would say that, but actually it's different. So DSC funds online, 4,500 trusts. We'll ping you 400 quid for the 4 different databases. You can share licenses, it makes it cheaper. Is the one used by many of the bigger professional charities. It will give you a great deal of information on a grant maker, and it can run really quite sophisticated searches. So that's pretty good. It'll go and find things for you. Grants Online works in pretty much the same way. They say they've got about the same amount of trust fundraisers. It's a great deal cheaper. Does that mean it's a much better deal than funds online? I will be honest, I don't know. I think people quite like funds online. It comes down to affordability. Go and have a look at them. My Funding Central, run by iDocs. They kicked me off it. Apparently, I'm not a small charity, although the Charity Commission thinks I am. But they were on mine, never mind. Free to groups under 30k. Above that, it becomes increasingly expensive. These are three traditional grants directories. They're the ones that many people will use. Which one suits you best? I don't really work with any of them, and I don't know them. So have a think about it. Then, of course, there is Funding Finder and Help Finder. They're different. Charity excellence is optimized for small and marginalized groups. So when you log into Funding Finder, search categories, it's much simpler to use. Or if you listen to the others, it's less sophisticated, but I need it to be simple to use because of the people that use my system. And it does something that none of them do. I don't get paid, so I don't need you to stay in Funding Finder. So Funding Finder hunts for other grants directories, and there are loads of them in the UK and globally. You've got click-through to about 100,000 funders. So if you run a Funding Finder search, it's a category. It will go and look for all those funding databases. There's Sports England, there's all sorts of stuff out there. So if you're looking for other databases, you want to have a quick look around, you go into Funding Finder. Funding Finder is completely free. And you can have a look around and see what databases are on there. There is also Help Finder. Help Finder has a donations funding category, and what it does is corporate fundraising, but not like you've seen it before. What it does is the very large companies, the small guys can't compete for the corporate agreements. But large numbers of those companies will make smaller donations around their outlets. And some of them have got thousands and thousands of outlets across the UK and across the planet. So Help Finder goes and finds them and gives you an office locator so you can go and find who's local to you. And it will also look and find small local companies, estate agents, accountants, etc. So it's different. So those are the two. They are free. All of the Finder directories are designed to be extremely simple to use. There are 100 plus funder lists, and that includes local funder lists. Now, the reason I particularly like my local funder lists, which are from the Charity Commission database, is that there is generally less competition if they're only local, because you're not competing against the big boys. And also they tend to be rather less well known. So I think for the small charities in the world, this is a good opportunity. So those are your choices. Pick the one that works for you. 20 ways to find funding. So I will simply run through them. Before I start, when you start thinking about earning income, fundraising is not about asking people for money. It's about helping them to do something they already want to support something they care about in whatever way works best for them. If you take that, that's a broader and easier to work with thing, and I think that helps. So, ways to find funding. Funding Finder has a Funding Finder search category. If you run a search on that, it will go looking for every funding database that's free and a whole bunch of online funding lists, and it will display them all for you. And if you think there's one out there that's better for you than mine, off you go. And that ranges from small local funder databases that are lists by councils, etc. We've got things like the Swiss Federal Database. There's also 5013C database in the US. There's some Gucci things out there. There is a Global Environmental Funders database. You'd be surprised what's around. And it will go and find them for you, and you may come up with a better database. Help Finder, donations funding. It's a simple, quick way to find company donations. If you're not sure about how you do this kind of thing, I like this, because often what the companies will be trying to do is they keep it pretty simple. It's send me an email, fill in this online web form. So it's not like writing a big grant bid. The in-system Charity Excellence AI bid writing bunny will actually help you to write the case to put into them. And they will also do other things. They will provide volunteering. They may provide event space. They may have match funding. They may donate products, Swizzle Sweets. In Derbyshire, if you go to Yorkshire, we've got gummy bear factories, 2 gummy bear factories. That's a lot of gummy bears. And so there's a whole spectrum of stuff, and that gets your foot in the door with that company, and maybe you can build and grow on that. So that's a nice, simple, easy thing for the little charities. Charity Commission. The Charity Commission database is an electronic slag heap. It really is awful, but it's completely free. I'm Scottish. I love free stuff. And it's got 15,000 grant makers on it. Not every one of those actually makes grants. They just tick the box. So a lot of them are and others will not give you grants. PTAs, private school foundations, cathedrals, that kind of thing, where they're raising money for themselves. So all 15,000, they're not all perfect for you. And there are grant makers who are not on the Charity Commission database of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and they're people who are just not charities. It is really clunky to use, and it is not giving you info on grant funding in the way that you would get from a grants database, but you can go in there and you can do searches. Now, what I've done is gone through the whole damn thing. I am a sad, sad man, I assure you, and I've cleaned it all up. And I've turned it into a whole series of funding lists for each of the English county. There's one for Scotland, there's one for Wales, there's 4 for London, each for one of the London selection of the London boroughs. So I've done the spade work for you. You download those from the income questionnaire. Newly registered grant making charities. You can buy into this. They're commercial companies. I'm sure what they do is far better than mine, but you pay them. You don't pay me. But these are the ones that much fewer people know about. So that's quite good. There's less competition, so you may be getting in ahead of the pack. What I do is every 6 months is I download all the new grant makers from the Charity Commission. I clean it up, I turn it into a funding list, and I upload that funding list into the income questionnaire and Charity Excellence. And you can simply go there and you can download it. And it's a research list. Not as good as the paid for version, I suspect, but you're not paying for it. And don't waste money. I told you I was Scottish. It's an ethnic thing. You're not allowed to criticise me for it. Cost control. You would not believe how much money just slips through your fingers. If it's slipping through your fingers in contracts you don't need, in areas you don't need, in places you're overspent, it is not getting to the front line. We don't want that. So this is not about cutting into your services, it's about cutting into the waste. On Charity Excellence, I have a guide for how I do that when I do turnarounds. You can go in there and it just has about 30 ways you can find wasted funding within organizations. I mean, for example, I was in one, I made a phone call. They had bought into a contract for IT where they bought the gold-plated version. They hadn't taken anyone off the contract in about 4 years. And on strength of the phone call, I have the costs from 10,000 to 5,000. That's £5,000 every single year. And all it took was a phone call. There's loads of money done. Don't overlook this. I'm being lean and mean and getting that money to the front line. It means there's more money flowing to your beneficiaries. It means the grant makers will go, yeah, we like the look of you. As you use Charity Excellence, you will find on your dashboard, bottom left, is critical health check. There is funding to the front line. The system, as you go through it, will check all of this stuff for you, and it will tell you where there may be opportunities for you to achieve more. Most people find it boring and they don't do it. And my answer is, because it's boring and they don't do it, that's why it's a good place to look. Help Finder, it astonishes me how many charities pay for stuff like software, consultancy, and all sorts of things like that. Help Finder has over 800 providers. There are 19 search categories. It can find just about anything. It's got everything from period products to fundraising Daleks. And you just need to go in and get them. Free stuff. I'm Scottish. I may have mentioned that before. Other ways to find things. Rekindle old relationships. The guys who funded you in the past have just kind of slipped away. Often it's a trust funder, for example. They're not going to fund you every single year, and someone's will not apply this year, and then they've never gone back. How do you find them? Annual report. Usually you have your thanks in there. Pull the annual reports from 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Have a look at the trusts that are listed in there. Are there people there who've slipped through the net that you've forgotten about? Or go into your fundraising files. If you have a CRM, pull out the CRM data for 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, get a list of all the trusts, see who's paid you what, when they paid you, have you spoken to those people in the near future, have you been keeping those relationships up? If you're not yet ready to apply with those guys who funded you in the past, don't forget to send them stuff like Christmas cards, keep them engaged, keep yourself on their radar, make sure you maintain the engagement, and frankly, saying thank you to people who gave you money is something we should be doing anyway. I also think not just about who you are, but what your project is, the difference you make and how you do it. For example, I keep coming back to, it was a Caribbean group, and they were looking after older people. They were doing the reggae music and Jamaican patties. I love Jamaican patties. And that's fine. So you can apply to the BAME funders, but you can also apply to funders for older people. And the difference they were making was around isolation and loneliness. It was about promoting good mental health. Do you know what? There are funders for that. Refurbishing the wee place they had. There's capital funders for that. Getting some tech so the people that they're looking after can chat to the nephew in Glasgow that they've never seen before, and they can use a laptop. People like Access Foundation, tech funder, but they will fund digital exclusion. So you can package it. So when you say we keep doing the same thing, we don't have projects, you can actually package things up in a way that it makes a good funding bid and a good case. And that's what the professionals are doing, taking the ongoing work and packaging it in particular ways. So think about all the different ways, and suddenly you find that we're a BAME group, we just get BAME funding. Suddenly there's a whole series of funders have opened up this potential for you. And new funders who are engaged with your cause that you didn't think about. So I did one for a refugee charity. I went and got a bunch of other refugee charity accounts, downloaded them from Charity Commission. I went through them, took a copy of all the thanks to the funders, and came up with a great big list, all of which funded refugee charities. I know that because they did. Ethics around that? Well, if a charity has somehow managed to secure an agreement with a commercial company or an individual and you go and try and poach them, I would say you should not do that. That is seriously unethical. That's wrong. But if you're talking about a grant maker, grant makers make grants to lots of people. And so if you apply to a grant maker that you maybe hadn't thought about, and maybe in a slightly different space, and someone else has done that, that's not unethical. You're not trying to take the grant maker off them. You're simply building on their good work. So checking the annual accounts of other people. And what you'll find sometimes is there will be trust funders in there who've never funded refugees, but they kind of work in this space around disadvantaged people or something. And clearly in this funder, refugees, they feel is part of that. That's a good thing to explore. Grow your regular donors. I keep coming out with all this boring stuff for you guys. Nobody wants it. Everybody agrees with me when I talk about regular donors. I remember having a conversation with the board. Oh, yes. I said to them, would you like £45,000 in core income a year? And they're like, oh my God, yes. I said, are you ready to wait 3 years for it? And they're like, oh, yeah, anything to get our hands on it. I said, you need to grow your regular donors. If you look at your engagement and you look at the number of supporters you have, and you look at what might be a realistic growth, within 3 years, you can make that £45,000 a year, and that's co-funding. Loads of people really don't work this one. And the thing is, it grows, it's core funding, and it's predictable in a way other funds aren't. What is not to like about that? So grow your regular donors is a really good one. And upgrade your existing donors. One of the Charity Excellence trustees is Marie Davies. She told me about when she'd gone in and talked to a chief executive and said to the chief executive, did you know that you've got 4 multimillionaires on your CRM? And they didn't think about it, hadn't looked at the donors. How do you find them? Well, you know the areas around where you are that are affluent, where all the rich folk live. And you can check them on Google Maps. If you check them on Google Maps and it's a stonking great house with a swimming pool and tennis courts, they're probably well off. Maybe these are people you can engage. You could invite them along to events. You could begin to grow them. You could maybe get them just to increase their regular donor, or maybe you could talk to people about a much larger thing, or maybe you could think about bringing in a legacy program if most of your donors tend to be older people, and there are a whole series of different things you can do. It takes a long time. When it's up and running, it's fantastic. UK government grants and contracts, yeah, massively cut. Our September 23 report, we've taken £1 billion out. So, you know, this isn't as great as it used to be, but there are government grants and contracts. And there's some weird and wonderful stuff out there. I posted one out recently where a prison wanted an arts charity to come in and run artistic development to promote mental health amongst prisoners. There was another, it was a women's prison, and they wanted an animal charity to come in and do kind of pet therapy stuff, and they were going to pay for it. So don't overlook government grants. The government makes huge amounts of grants, Innovate UK and all of that kind of stuff, almost all focused at economic development, so not really for us, but there are funds in there that are useful. Other ways, Google Ads grant, it's £90,000 of free online advertising. You have to be a registered charity. It works better if you've got a UK footprint and if you're publicly appealing. If you can get the pictures of donkeys up there and stuff like that, yeah, the public loves that kind of thing. If you're in criminal justice, it's more of a struggle for you. So if you fall into there, it is a bit techie to set up. There is a chunk of work to getting it up and running. I did it. Almost all my ads are now excellent, and I'm really ancient. I am not a digital native. Or you can pay people to do it for you. You go, yeah. So now you're talking about paying consultants or management, that Access Group do it, that kind of thing. And the answer is yes. But if you've got £90,000 in free advertising, you are paying them, but you've got that as a stonking great amount there. And as long as what's coming in is more than what's going out, your quid's in. And for things like Christmas appeals, etc., this is great. For some of the Muslim charities and people like that, if your actual appeal of the work that you do is global, better still. So this is a no-brainer. There is a guide on the website. Poor man's version. I may have mentioned I'm Scottish. I'm back again. You can create Google search alerts. I found one recently. Finding funding for the LGBTIQ plus community. I'm going to bite my tongue on that one day. Is really hard. They're just not attractive to funders. I'm sorry. And I found one in the Birkenhead News, local funding for LGBT. And people went, why are you reading the Birkenhead News? And the answer is, I'm not. I have set up Google searches and I said to Google, when you find me a nice juicy grant, would you tell me about it? And I get an email every single day. Now, you may be a local charity, you're saying, well, thank you very much, but I'm not interested in LGBTIQ plus in Birkenhead. But if you're based, you could say, I'm in Bucks, charity grant funding in Bucks. Funding for older people in Bucks. Funding for older people, full stop. And you can set use queries up and you just get an email. And if they don't work, switch them off, put something else in. Crypto fundraising is really quite niche. But the reason I'm very positive about it is that it is bringing in new donors into the charity sector, and strategically that's what we need. So I'm very on side. They tend to be younger and they tend to be wealthier. You will find a guide on the website. Thank you very much. I got to do the shout out for GSR Foundation, who are a crypto trust, and they have supported us financially, so I'm very positive about that. It isn't for everything. you do need to have specific skill sets, or access to the advice that will allow you to do it. If you read my guide, it'll give you everything you need to decide whether you want to or not. When I was writing it and the supporting policy, I went out to 9 charities who are doing it and said, look, have you got any tips and tricks? Could you have a look at my policies? If you think anything, you're welcome to use anything I've done. Not a single one responded. So clearly they didn't think that helping other people to get into crypto fundraising was a good idea. If they don't think it's a good idea to let you into crypto fundraising, it may well be a good idea for you to be in crypto fundraising. Charity trading, slightly more complex than something like a CIC. Primary purpose trading is trading in line with your charity's object. There are no tax implications. Secondary purpose trading is just to make a profit. If you exceed certain limitations, you may be liable to corporation tax. You need to be careful. I think it's about 9,000 until you get slightly higher. If that is going to be a big deal for you, then you just drop it into a little trading company. What do I mean by that? In my first chief exec role, I ran dementia units. We were trading because we had to charge people. Primary purpose. That's what we were doing. We existed to support older people, particularly those with dementia. It falls within charitable objects. There are no tax implications at all. Being Scottish, I have mentioned this, I also flogged health and safety at work training to the local fire service. Selling health and safety training to the fire service has got absolutely nothing to do with looking after older people. I just wanted the money so that I could use it for other purposes. Clearly, secondary purpose training. That could become liable to tax. You can put it in a trading company. Things that charities routinely do. You can sell training. You can hire out your rooms, your office spaces, even if you're doing it to sister charities at really reduced rates. If you've an event space, it's not being used. If you've got a vehicle, they sit on the tarmac, costing money all the time. So what I've done when I've had a vehicle is I would phone up Local Age UK or someone like that and say, I've got a very smart minibus here. It's fully optimized for older and disabled people. If you want to hire it, I will charge you a significantly subsidized fee. And all I was doing was helping to buy out the standing costs for the servicing, the insurance and stuff like that. They were really happy because it was cheap as chips in comparison to what you would pay. There are lots of ways you can do this stuff. Have you thought about what have you got that other people would pay you for? Join a platform. There are endless matching platforms. Obviously, I've got a resource for that. It's got over 100 on it. There are auction sites. There are selling sites. There are all sorts of things. Generally, they pay you a tiny little fraction, so you're certainly not going to get rich out of it. But it can be useful. And it can be useful for little charities where you've got a lot of local support, but those supporters haven't got much money. A refugee charity, for example. So if they just buy things through the browser, they're raising money for you. It's not much, but it's money. The other one is auction type sites. Browsio, run by Xavier, you set up as a non-profit, is a kind of eBay for charities. So you can clear your wardrobe out, you can sell off the old shoes and stuff like that. You make a few quid, you can keep some for yourself, and you can make a donation to the charity. So your beneficiaries may not have a lot of money, but that actually might be quite helpful to them. It gets them a bit of cash, and you get some too, and everybody wins. So this is not a great money spinner, but if you want to do stuff, it's pretty straightforward. Tax reliefs. I get very excited about tax reliefs. Taking money off the English government is fabulous. It is the best thing you could possibly do. We failed to claim £500 million, that's 500 million pounds a year in gift aid alone. It's one of about 15 different tax reliefs. You can claim it up to 4 years retrospectively. If the charity sector put the paperwork in for the tax reliefs it's entitled to, the funding gap would disappear overnight. That's how much money I'm talking about. And we don't do it. We should, because you're not applying for a grant, you're entitled to this. And they really do send you a check. The biggest one I ever found was £250,000. VAT on domestic accommodation, for God's sake. So there is a whole load of money to be had here. I've written a gift aid guide. It's distilled it down into something that's really short and simple. It gives you the key stuff. It gives you the key connections. There are ways to get gift aid on events. There are ways to get gift aid on membership. You can get gift aid on missionaries. There are loads. VAT, there's VAT on lifeboats, Resusci Annies. There is loads and loads of stuff. There is a guide on charity excellence to tax relief. As you complete the charity excellence questionnaires, they will audit all of your tax reliefs. And when you get to the end, you go to the query system, you run the tax relief query system, and it will come back and tell you where you can claim money. It's trying to give you money. We don't do it because it's kind of boring and it's a bit complicated. These are vast amounts of money. We need to get this in because we need to get hold of this cash. And using ChatGPT, not as straightforward as you think. So people say, can I use it for the right funding bit? And the answer is yes, you can, if you know how to use it and if you know everything that should be in a funding bid. If you're not used to writing fundraising bids, you will probably go wrong because it's got a vast amount of information out there and it's got all that. What it doesn't have is anything about you. So you're going to have to tell it who you are, what you do, who your beneficiaries, how much. You have to put all of that kind of information in. If you want to do that, if you log into Charity Excellence, speak to the bid writing bunny. He's got cool sunglasses, so you'll know you've got the right one. He will ask you 17 questions. He will then write a funding bid for you. So that's a better way to do that. But there are lots of things you can do. It's great for things like get me 12 fundraising ideas. Quite literally. You're going to have a summer fair. Ask it for stalls, celebrities. So I asked it for celebrities who promote mental health. Give me 12. It didn't give me Monty Dong. I'm a gardener. And he's supported it. He suffered from depression. I kept asking it. I actually got 40 in the end. Now, it won't give you contact details for companies or celebrities or anything like that. It will tell you what they've done. It will give you public telephone numbers. It will give you public emails. It will do all of that, but it will not give you personal details. The guardrails will prevent that. And companies, so I did, give me all of the companies in Buckinghamshire that have made donations to charity. Now, you might get it sometimes come back and it says, my information's only up to 2022 and therefore I don't have that. So you go back and ask it and give me the companies that in the past have made donations in Buckinghamshire, and then it should come back and get it to you. And keep asking until it runs out. Because if you ask it for 12, you get 12. But if you say, give me more, give me more, give me more, give me more, it will keep coming back with more. And then it'll all get a bit naff and you're looking at the results and going, no, it's just rubbish. I've used it to find match funding companies. I've used it to find global funding, global companies that make major donations. And it will do all of that kind of stuff. And it's useful. And use your follow-on prompts to build information. So, for example, I will say, give me company to make donations in Buckinghamshire, and I'll say, could you please give me the details of what those donations were and how much and who for it. If you've got that, then I'll say, could you please add in the public telephone numbers and the email addresses, and then I'll finish off by saying something like, well, how do I find the name of the chief exec or board members, or how do I contact celebrities? And it will tell you how to do it. It won't do it for you, but if you ask it nicely, it'll tell you how you can do it. So you can keep chipping away and building all that information up. And that's one way that you can begin to use it for prospect, which is what I've just said. So that is everything. I hope you're going, yeah, he talks a whole load of rubbish. I have got the message that he's Scottish, but there are 3 things in there that we can go away, we can work on, and that will help us to secure money. I hope that I've given you something, and I hope that you end up with a chunk of money in your pocket because of that. Thank you.